Alright, welcome to RhapsodyCast, episode 4. I'm Matt,
And I'm Nate.
and if you didn't notice, I'm sure you noticed because last time it was silly, new music, new intro music.
Yeah.
Nate secured us some music from the very fun band Black Bear Combo.
Yep. Big thanks to those guys.
Oh, they make some great music, and if you like their music, you can get it on iTunes. I don't imagine there's any other bands that have a similar name, so just...
No, I just searched Black Bear Combo and both their albums popped up.
Boom.
Yeah, under $10 too.
Yeah.
Not to sound like I'm going nuts about them, but they're amazing. So
Yeah, they're fun.
screw you. Go get it.
And we're gonna have them from now for the seeable future.
Yeah.
So enjoy it, because we do, and they do. Okay, so this week our shared prompt was games, and we'll get to the stories in a second, but before we do that, Nate, what cool things did you do this week?
I don't even know. I've been working way too much. I'm on my... This will be number 14 day in a row with the work.
Ugh.
And I'm just tired of it. So basically, I've worked and I watched some movies with you,
Watched
had
a
some
couple
pizza,
movies. Always
and
eating
then,
pizza.
and then, man, I don't know, I wrote a story.
Good story, sweet story.
We'll see.
I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna be Hyper Man.
Alright, man. Hype man.
Hype Man.
Yeah.
Be like the Billy Mays or the other one.
The other one.
The
Yeah.
other one. I think, Hooker McBeady jail.
Oh,
Vince.
yeah.
Vince.
Yeah.
He's like a hype man. They have a special name though. The Carnival Barker Seller type guys.
Infomercial guy?
Yeah, sure. They had a show, remember? Like the world's next infomercial show guy.
Oh, yeah. I remember
I
that.
don't think that's what it was called. I myself, the day after we last recorded, I went to see Maleficent, which is pretty good. It's fun. It's not in my top 5 movies of the year, but you know what? It was a fun fantasy movie. We're not going to get a lot of them. Go see it.
Yeah.
Go support it.
Oh, and I saw How to Train Your Dragon 2, which is a great fantasy movie.
Nate saw How to Train Your Dragon 2. Great fantasy movie.
It's got dragons, it's got Vikings,
Both
it's
good
got
things.
Sheep.
I had a goat sound in my story just a few weeks ago, so there's that.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Other than that, yeah, work, pizza, that's standard stuff.
Yeah.
Celebrated Flag Day by comparing 2 pizzas side by side. I enjoyed that.
That was for Flag Day?
Well, that was what my friend emailed me, like, hey, for Flag Day we wanted to get together, try these 2 pizzas side by side. And then I got there, and I bought the pizzas and came back, and like one of my other friends was like, oh, hey, happy birthday. It's like, oh wait, it was your birthday? Why'd you say it was Flag Day?
Okay.
It was Flag Day, but I guess he just wanted to play down the fact that it was also his birthday.
Yeah, I don't like celebrating things.
I am right there with you. Last year, my family went out of town for all of December, and we just didn't have Christmas, and it was just like, man, I'll just spend my money and get things I want, and not be bah humbug about it, because I like Christmas, I love Christmas music, but it was just convenient, I guess.
Yeah, I love convenient things.
Alright, I guess with that, we'll go into some conveniently read for you fiction.
Ah.
It's convenient, you don't have to read it.
Segue.
Segue. It was a good segue, I like segue.
You're getting good at that, Matt.
I'm trying.
All right. My the prompt that I had was games, and your prompt for me was barbarian.
Yep.
My story is called The Bad News Barbarians.
Ah, I like it.
I have a title this time.
Nice.
Bah, this sucks, shouted Carwolf the Barbarian King. There's nothing to do. I'm so bored. Man, stupid. Ugh.
That's a very barbarian response to being bored.
Yeah.
Also, you've had the king in your last 3 stories.
I like I'm setting up all the kings around the world.
There's a bunch.
Yeah. The slave next to Carwolf rolled his eyes and continued to wave a giant feather in his general direction. Carwolf sat on his throne, crafted out of bones and mud, weighing his options. He had many of them, being the barbarian king of the southern region of Smithdale. He could go out and hunt, pillage a small nearby village with his gang of barbarian tribesmen, eat, take out his dog, wash his back, learn a new dance move or two, build a sandcastle, invent something, start a war, find some money on the ground, take the devil out for drinks, craft an epic death blade, learn to sew, cook an egg, do a push-up, look at his skull collection, or even take a nap.
There's too many things. How is he going to decide?
Yup, Carwolf had it all, but that didn't stop him from complaining. I am the barbarian king. I should never not be entertained. That should be a law. Slave, he pointed, write that down. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't write. I can keep waving this giant feather around you, though. That will have to do. Carwolf slumped into his throne, old dirty bones. He actually calls his throne that.
That's a good name for a throne made out of dirt and bones.
Yeah. His mud hut was bustling with activity. Slaves of all races scuttled around his makeshift lair, performing odd tasks. 2 slaves guarded the ornately designed cloth doorway of his hut. A skull rolled past the guard from outside, landing next to Carwolf's feet, with a small barbarian child following after it. What is this? You dare disturb me? I'm sorry, but we were playing and my friend kicked it and it came in. And Carwolf cut off his run-on sentence. Fool! Carwolf kicked the skull so hard it flew through the wall of his hut, forcing the hut to collapse, killing everyone inside except Carwolf.
Oh, damn. Even kid death. It's gotta be our first kid death, right?
I don't know. I've alluded to that in like every story, though.
Yeah, dude.
I'm keeping my themes strong. Kid death.
Oh,
I'm for it.
Pro kid death. Oh, I guess, yeah, you had that one, like, she gave her firstborn up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rising from the rubble, Carwolf smiled. I've got it! Slaves, fetch me my 9 closest friends! Within minutes, the 9 were gathered in front of the barbarian king. Flig, Pazg, Wick, Dick, Nick, Quid, Grunk, Lud, and Moo.
Well,
I've created a new game. It is called Kickskull.
Okay. Like, was that rapid succession? Those were like 4 different guys.
9.
I mean, like, click, dick, fick, dick. Like that was not one guy with 2 dicks.
No. Wick is 1. Dick is 1. Nick is 1.
Okay.
Quid, Grunk, Lud, Moo, Flig, and Pazg.
I don't think you know this, but quid is actually British slang.
For
money. Okay, you do know. Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I've had the slaves make us uniforms. The slaves started passing out the uniforms to the ragtag bunch of barbarians. Carwolf took his uniform and held it out for his team to see. The uniform was created from woolgon pelts and dyed in red with blood. His had a big number 1 on it and said, Balix Heating and Air.
Yeah, they got sponsorship already.
We've even got sponsorship, he said. I wrote that in.
I do. I ruin your jokes half a second earlier every time.
The group of barbarian warriors looked quizzically at each other and at their new uniforms. Now, we will have a game tonight. We are playing against those jerks from over there. Carwolf pointed to a group of barbarian men standing around talking. So, we have to bring our A game tonight. All right, let's kick some barbarian butt.
Like, does anyone know the rules of this game? They're just going in.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. Lud spoke up how he couldn't form a proper sentence to explain his confusion. Don't worry, we will practice soon. I have to grab some stuff and then we'll be able to start. Meet me at the beach. Carwolf rushed to the skull collection tent. He stared at all of them. He had been collecting them since he was a child. So many memories. The lizard man skull from the first lizard man he had ever killed during the War of Lizard Men and Normal Men, or WLMNN as it was called for short.
Yeah, that's easier.
Yeah. It's actually really hard to say. The wizard skull from the time a foolish wizard dared to pull a quarter from behind Carwolf's ear.
Dude, barbarians hate magic.
I know. Norwick, the skeleton man skull, which was actually autographed by Norwick himself. Norwick was a swell guy.
He signed his own skull and gave it away?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice dude.
Yeah, he's got an autographed skull in his skull collection. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, you need to have that, otherwise it's just a pile of bones.
Right. It's got value.
Yeah.
Finally, Carwolf settled on Vrood, the giant skull. Carwolf claimed the skull while visiting the Cloud City of Puffton, the home of giants. Vrood was an exceptional adversary and soon would be an exceptional ball. Carwolf met the 9 now suited up barbarians by the ocean, which was only a stone's throw away from the barbarian city. Alright everyone, ready? Let's go over the rules. Kick Skull is a game where I throw the skull and you kick it and try to run from here. Carwolf drew an X in the sand with his foot and jogged 50 feet down the shoreline and drew another X. To here without one of us throwing this skull and hitting you. Any questions? What's the point of all this? Grunk snorted. It's gonna be fun, Carwolf said. Is fun like killing? Moo asked. Yes, exactly. Kick Skull will be good fun. The barbarian team nodded and smiled. That night, after a good amount of training and practice, the barbarians gathered along the beach to play the other barbarian jerks from over there. That's like in quotations, because that's the team of their name.
That's what he called them.
The name of the team. Yeah. The whole tribe gathered to watch. All right. Let's see some hustle out there, Carwolf said. Pazk went first. I hate writing names that I can't pronounce. Pazk went first. Carwolf pitched the skull. Pazk kicked it into the air. The other barbarian jerks stood around in the beach, not paying much attention. One barbarian began to speak when the giant skull fell and bashed him on the head. Yeah, go, go, go! Yelled Carwolf.
Get that energy.
Paz began to sprint toward the other X. With the opposing team standing around and kicking sand, picking their noses, and generally not participating, Pack ran to the X uninhibited. Yeah, score one for Balix, heating and air! Slave! Mark one for us! A slave in the crowd took out a knife and began to carve a line in his chest.
I like that, and I hate it. It's weird. It's brutal. Go.
It's brutal. Next up was Nick. Carwolf pitched to Nick, and he kicked the skull so hard into the audience, killing 3 people and 10 slaves. Yeah! Everyone, even the opposing jerk, shouted cheers. This game is awesome, Nick remarked, running down the shoreline. Slave, mark another for my team! The slave carved another mark in his fleshy chest. This went on throughout the whole roster until it was Carwolf's turn. Quid stood in for pitcher and tossed the skull over to Carwolf. With all his might, Carwolf kicked the skull so hard it hit one of the jerks and blew a hole through his chest.
Oh, man.
The skull continued to hit another barbarian behind him. The skull bounced off his chest and landed on the sand in front of him. Carwolf sprinted towards the X when the barbarian picked up the skull in a mad rage and threw it at the barbarian king. The skull hit him milliseconds before he touched the X.
Dang.
The silence of the crowd was deafening. No, not fair! Slave, add another point for us, the king whined. The slave, now lying on the ground, died. He just died.
Oh, well, he's got a bunch of knife wounds.
Self-inflicted knife wounds. Another barbarian grunted at the king in protest. Carwolf shouted back, "What? We won! First to 10 wins! My kingdom, my rules!" The jerk barbarian took out a sword and swung at the king. The king pulled out his sword and swung back, cleaving off his head.
Whoa.
He continued cleaving the jerk's heads off one by one. The other barbarians in the audience joined in the fight. Soon the whole village was torn down by the barbarians. The slaves tried to escape, but most of them died. It was the largest barbarian on barbarian war ever. Jerry the deity drove his holy tow truck above the carnage and looked down. He shook his head. People take sports too seriously, and then drove off to ruin someone's day. The end.
Man, that's timely. Like right after the end of the NHL and during the playoffs of the NBA. Are those the sports things that are happening?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Oh, it's social commentary, but he doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is actually. And I like it.
Did you like my story?
Like, it was like, hey, I'm bored. I'm gonna go start a war inadvertently.
Yeah, basically.
He's barbarian.
He wanted to have fun, but he's a barbarian. What else is he gonna do besides get angry and kill?
Like, I wanted to be, like, outraged. Like, this is a terrible rule. Why is he always the pitcher if, like, he's pitching to his team than the opposing team? Like,
he never pitched to the opposing team.
well, but yeah, but I mean, like, you'd imagine he'd be pitching to the opposing team because the rule was he pitches. But it's like, well, he's the king. He doesn't care about being fair.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think the opposing team knew how to play.
No, yeah, that was what I was wondering, because none of them even tried. Like, it's like, oh, you hurt my dude, I'm going to throw this thing at you.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going for. He wasn't even trying to win. He was just like, "Rah, I'm a barbarian."
That is how they reacted to everything, was with violence, because they're barbarians.
So, interestingly, I wrote 2 pages of another story before writing this story.
Oh.
I used nothing from my last, like, the story I was going to write for this one.
Is that the one we were talking about just a few days ago?
Yeah.
Wow. You, like, just scrapped up a whole story, like, overnight then, huh?
Pretty much.
Nice. Well done, Nate. I couldn't do that.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just hope you didn't, make concessions you didn't want to make.
No, I'm good.
And you could always go back to that other one. I mean...
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping I'll eventually do. Because I really like the character I made in the other one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So my prompt from you, or the shared one was a game, and then your unique one for me was a magical article of clothing.
Yep.
And
I remember
actually
that.
forgot to insert it. Like I was like, I'm gonna put it here, and then like I finished my story and I was like, did I do that one sentence? Don't get me wrong. It's actually really important. Like it's just like when I get to the climax, I'm mentioning this article of clothing, and I was like, I set this up right 3 pages ago.
Jeez.
And had to reinsert the whole paragraph that describes the thing.
Man.
Just barely getting my story done in time. All right. So my story is called "A Game of Death," which is unique and never been used before.
Yeah, I haven't seen that Bruce Lee movie.
I actually Googled it. It's been at least 5 movies in the last 40 years,
and
50 years.
They're not even remakes.
No. Like one of them is like a Kraven the Hunter situation where he's got a bunch of humans and he's hunting the most dangerous game, which is also
that sounds awesome.
Also called the most dangerous game. That was actually from the 50s, so that one might be the least good. And then
Oh,
there was one like 3 years ago that was about like drug deals or something.
yeah,
Eh. Okay,
yeah.
so a game of death. It was a miserably cold evening. Rain poured from the sky in thick, wet sheets. The sky itself was black, the large, nearly full moon providing nearly no illumination through the overcast storm clouds. Nadine Grandiero held the reins of two massive draft horses that pulled the large, elaborate carriage through the thick, sucking mud. The rocky dirt path up to Viscount Virtirgo's hilly estate was generally treacherous most evenings, but with the added hassles of heavy rain turning the dirt into a sloshy, shoe-eating mess, and the clouds bullying the brightest of the three moons out of the sky, Nadine was spectacularly uneasy. He glanced to his right to look at Taxon, the carriage's only guard. Taxon wore studded leather armor and an open-faced metal helmet. His cool, gray eye stared off into the murky distance, ever vigilant and searching for danger. Nadine pulled his waterlogged cloak tighter, trying to fight off an upcoming shiver. At this rate, they were only an hour or two from the Viscount's estate, with all of the warmth and shelter that it provided. Inside the carriage sat two men of varying status. The owner of the conveyance was Tex Goldenleaf, an elven cattle rancher. When not sitting in his carriage, Tex stood about 6 feet tall, with long golden hair that fell halfway down his back, and was always unbound. He wore nothing on his head, but did have a hat with a high crown and wide brim typically associated with ranchers and cowpokes, sitting on the benched seat beside him. The hat had a green band that looked as if it were made of woven tree leaves and was itself a stark, starchy white that perfectly matched his buttoned collared shirt. Wrapped around his collar was a black string tie that was tied loosely. With his white suit coat and matching pants, which were held up by a black belt with a golden maple leaf belt buckle, he was the picture of a gentleman. Sitting across from Text was Landon Bravo.
Landon Bravo.
Isn't that a great name?
That's pretty good.
Especially because he's a gambler. Like, so
Yeah,
he's Landon Bravo, gambler.
I don't do last names.
Oh, I did for almost everyone in this story, but you know they might come back, so I don't wanna. I don't know. I did last names. I'm sorry.
What?
I don't know. Landon had a fairly dark complexion with short black hair and a thinly kept goatee that circled his mouth. He wore black dress pants and a blue silk shirt with the top few buttons undone. A copper gesture, worn and notched from a long and busy life, danced around his fingers of his left hand as he absently stared out the window. The two sat, as they had for the last few hours, with only the sound of rain hitting the roof of the car to fill the silence. Text finished his tumbler of gin, his third in as many hours, then sighed. Y'all sure you don't want some of this? This is the finest elven gin. You know, we elves know our berries. No, Landon declined, but thanks. I try not to drink before a big game. I like to keep my edge. Tex smiled. I prefer drinking during the big ones. That way I feel I always go home a winner. I reckon I'll be swacked before the night's over, he explained. Tex reached for the gin bottle again. Before he had the top off, the carriage lurched to an abrupt halt. Quickly he replaced his bottle and his glass into their form-fitting shelves on the side of the car. The two men sat quietly in the shadowy vehicle, straining to hear any outside sounds through the loud pattering of the raindrops. They stared out their respective windows, the little amount of moonlight illuminating their faces into haunting, shadowy visages of demons and death. Time passed at an agonizingly slow pace, as the two men stared out into the blackness around them, searching in the darkness for something. Anything. A face appeared at Tex's window. Startled, he threw himself back into his seat before he realized it was just Nadine. The driver slid the door open, letting in a cold rush of wet air. Sir, Taxon has found a body in the road. A body? Tex questioned. Yes. Apparently he's had his throat slit and his clothes stolen. Well, I'll be, Tex trailed off. Taxon is removing the body from the road now, Nadine explained. We shall be moving again presently. With that he shut the carriage door. They were moving again within minutes. Tex drank another 2 glasses of gin before they arrived at the Viscount's estate, a little over an hour later. When Tex and Landon arrived at the estate of the Viscount, they found they were neither the first nor the last of the guests, but they were certainly the only ones to arrive together. The two stood outside under an awning, just barely out of the icy reach of the heavy rain. Well, thanks again for the ride, Mr. Goldenleaf, Landon said. Hey, boy, call me Tex, he corrected. And you don't worry about it. The elf offered his hand as he added, and regardless of what happens in there, Don't be afraid to ask any favor." Landon shook his outstretched hand, adding another, "Thanks." As the two shook, they noticed an approaching horse with a rider. Two of the Viscount's attendants, drenched in the rain and probably miserably cold, came immediately to the lone visitor. Beyond earshot, the newest arrival spoke to one attendant. They handed him the blue pass Tex and Landon recognized as signifying him as a fellow contender. "Well, all right," Tex said genuinely. "He ought to be the last of us. Let's get into the game." As the man approached, Tex offered him his hand and greeted him. "Howdy, I'm Tex Goldenleaf, and this here's Landon Bravo." The stranger glanced at the offered hand, then pushed past the two, adding, "Bidden Campson," as he entered the pair of double doors just past them. The two shunned gamblers made eye contact, Tex looking quite off-put, Landon looking bemused. With a shrug, they followed him into the building. When the three men entered the grand foyer, they added to the mingling with three more dried attendees already waiting inside. As they arrived, the steward clapped his hands excitedly, then motioned for everyone to follow. Silently and gracefully, the steward skimmed through the estate house, the 6 gamblers in tow. Without hesitation, he led them through the maze of hallways, past dozens of closed doors, until they reached a beautiful pair of double doors with intricate gilded etchings and golden handles. They entered, through these doors, into a grand hall. Dominating the center of the room was a large, felt-covered table with 6 evenly spaced chairs, and a semicircle cut into it for a dealer to stand in. Overlooking the entire hall, but particularly the card table, was an expansive, unilluminated balcony. 2 figures could be seen on the dark balcony, but their features could not be made out. One was large and imposing, filling a massive wooden throne. The other was tall and slight, standing in attendance to the sitting figure. The steward cleared his throat before speaking. "Viscount Virtirgo Venezia, I introduce to you the players for tonight's big game." First he gestured to a middle-aged woman wearing a light yellow bodice with extravagant yellow and white skirts. Her face and bosom were flushed a light reddish pink, which stood contrast to her thick mass of white hair, which was done up above her head in a classical style. "Madame Vanna of Gusten." Properly introduced, the madame curtsied, lifting fistfuls of her vast array of skirts. Still holding them up, she sashayed over to the first seat and parked herself, her dress's lower half devouring the stool as she did. Next he motioned to a dwarf with a thick, unadorned beard and short, trimmed hair. "Alaric Hammerman," he introduced, "manager of commerce of Martorium." The dwarf gave a deep bow, his black head of hair dipping below the waist of his ash-gray suit. When uprighted, Alaric walked gingerly to the next open stool and plopped himself down. Landon watched all of this curiously, not sure if it was more for the Viscount or the other gamblers' egos. The steward turned to him. "Landon Bravo, a newcomer to this gambling group." Landon bobbed his head in a curt bow, then walked to the next open seat, his hand absently rubbing his hair as he did so. As he neared his seat, he heard Vanna make a disgusted sound, and with a quick glance he noticed that she was rolling her eyes. The steward either didn't notice, or at least didn't respond to the madam, as he motioned to the shortest of the gamblers. "Felixtra, the surly saucebox." Felixtra gave an overly dramatic bow, her large, gnomish head nearly toppling her forward as her bangs brushed the floor. When she stood erect again, she could be seen in her full, small splendor. She was almost 3 feet tall, and wore a tight, slinky dress atop her rounded, soft form, the slit that ran up the length of her red dress's skirt revealing her leg up past her white thigh-high stockings with each sultry step. She hopped up onto the stool with the awkward grace of a tiny woman who had spent a pair of decades in a world designed around races twice her size. Again the steward continued without comment. "Tex Goldenleaf, renowned rancher from Dragonton." Tex bowed graciously, sweeping his wide-brimmed hat off his head as he did. As he righted himself, he replaced his hat, then strode confidently to his seat. When he was seated, the steward presented the final guest. The last to be introduced was also the last to arrive. He wore a green tunic with elaborate gold and purple embroidery stitched tactfully around the hem and shoulders. Draped from his shoulders was a flowing cloak that matched the tunic perfectly, even down to the stitching and placement of the embroidery. Sewn in the center of the back of the cloak was a spectacular golden BC monogram. The tunic seemed tight around his biceps and legs, and was nearly dripping, with as wet as it still was. The cloak, however, fit him perfectly, and showed no sign of ever being out in the rain. His eyes, a cold gray blue, stared intently at the shadowy figure sitting on the balcony. The philanthropist, Beden Campson, who personally funds 5 orphanages across the Mistvale. Bidden offered no bow as he stepped purposefully to his seat, his gaze not wavering from the shadowy figure until he neared the table. Landon heard Madame Vanna mutter, "Well, I never." He smiled, pleased to not be the least gracious in attendance. The dealer positioned himself at the front of the table and began shuffling the deck of cards. Tonight we will be playing Dragonton Hold Hand, the dealer explained. Your starting chips are worth 200,000 in total. This game will be single elimination until one player holds all of the chips. The grand prize for this evening will be 20,000 gold crowns from the Viscount's personal vault. The last two to be eliminated will also receive 20,000 silver tiaras or copper gestures for second and third.
Wait, like whole tiaras?
That's the coins, like, like we have dollar bills, they have gold crowns, silver tiaras, and copper jesters.
Gotcha. I thought he was just gonna give him a bunch of princess crowns.
Here's a bunch of, like you get golden crowns, which are, if you're a king, great. If you're not, I don't think you're allowed to wear. Now you get the princess crown, and then you get dudes that we just dipped in copper. They were funny before we dipped them. They're funnier now. He paused, bringing out a small drawstring bag. Finally, he explained, we'll be playing under an anti-magic field to discourage cheating. He pulled a silver disc from the bag. It was polished and covered in runes. He set it on the table, then waved his hand over it, and the runes began to glow blue. Everyone expected to feel differently, but they didn't. Then, Madame Vanna gasped, staring at Bidden. His elaborate, dry cloak, once green, was now a wet, drab brown. Wow, Alaric Hammerman noticed, impressed. A cloak that always matches your outfit. An impressive piece. The dealer cleared his throat, then asked, "Are there any questions before we begin?" "If I take the gestures," Flickstra asked, bemused. She leaned forward onto the table, showing off her cleavage below her playful smile. "Can I trade them for the wig off the madam's head?" Vanna's already flushed complexion turned a few shades redder as her hands gently adjusted the sides of her hair. I haven't the faintest idea of what you're inferring." "Lass," Alaric added, "though a free show is the only kind I'm interested in paying for, I don't think we'll be able to start while you have the dealer entranced." He jerked a bulbous thumb towards the man at the head of the table who was staring unerringly at the gnome. Flickstra leaned back with a satisfied smirk. Blushing intensely, the dealer locked his eyes on the cards in his hands, shuffling them a bit more before dealing them out. "His ain't the only elves eyes he swayed," Tex admitted, "and I reckon that, unlike our dwarf friend, I feel like a winner already." The smaller woman spun so she faced away from the rancher, then skillfully leaned backwards, giving him a personal vantage point. "If that piqued your interest, try winning this thing." She let out the words breathily, batting her round brown eyes. "I'm only interested in men who will beat me on a card table." "Well," Tex mused, "it may be that you'll be looking for a new ride home, Landon." Landon simply watched as this scene played out around him. Though it was totally mad, he had to admit it was at least entertaining. He couldn't quite tell if this was all a rehearsed act or simply a unique group of individuals enjoying a shared hobby together. This made it all the more interesting, and the young gambler either didn't notice or didn't care that the first few dozen or so hands went to players that weren't himself. Landon folded after a quick glance at his 2 cards, then looked up at the players around him. After adding her blind bet, the madam also folded her hand. She was absently fanning herself with a folding hand fan. Her skin had reddened considerably as the game had progressed. Landon figured she preferred more quiet and serious settings, and the more animated crowd at the Viscount's was clearly wearing on her patience. He watched her as she focused on the dealer's 4th card. "You all right, Campson?" Tex inquired of the man at the end of the table. "I heard you were usually a riot at these sort of things." "Yeah," Bidden said in his gravelly, unused voice. I'm just worried about the orphans." He was playing with his chips, placing them into stacks of various sizes and then evening them back out. "Wow," Flickstra interjected, rolling her eyes. "Better have the Viscount shutter the windows and barricade the doors to save us from that riot." The gnome then tossed in a stack of chips. "I raise 5,000, she declared, before adding, "for the orphans." The hand continued, and many followed it. Bidden was the first to be eliminated, after having dwindled his stack down to nearly nothing, then going all in after being dealt his hand yet before any community cards had been played. "Well, it truly was enjoyable playing with you," Vanna said as her frilly sleeve-covered hands raked in Bidden's chips. But you really must work on that dreadful tell of yours. At times it seems so obvious I think even the new child picked up on it a few times. She gestured to Landon, using her folded fan as she belittled him. Landon smiled politely. Yes, he had picked up on Mr. Camson's tell, but over the last hour he had accrued more of his mounting chip stack because he had realized the madam's tell. Whenever she had a good hand, her face paled to a more natural color. Bidden sat in stoic silence for the next few hands. After a fair amount of time, he stood up, silently excusing himself from the table. As he passed beyond the range of the anti-magic field, his wet brown cloak flowed back to its lustrous green, gold, and purple. It would seem, my dear, that cheap, lewd tactics are no replacement for honest card skills. Madame Vanna said this to Flickstra. The older woman's chips towered over everyone else's, whereas the gnomes had dwindled down to the select few important chips that she wasn't really ready to get rid of. You haven't seen lewd yet, you old hag, she declared, picking up a 500 coin chip. She dropped it down the front of her dress, smiling devilishly before adding, "If you want that one, you'll have to come grab it personally." Vanna's gasp was so audible it echoed off the balcony. Flickstra beamed, proud of that last shock on the older woman, if nothing else. The madam's gasp turned into a strained wheeze, then a wet gurgle. Next, it sounded a lot like a heavy body falling out of a chair. "Venus be damned!" a voice declared from the balcony. "The Viscount's been attacked! Help!" The steward, who had been standing in the corner in case anyone needed anything, rushed towards the door at the back of the hall. Landon sprung up from his stool, the other four at the table still in shock, and rushed after the steward. They took steps 2 at a time and sprinted down a long hallway. Finally, the 2 men pushed through a thick, heavy mass of curtain and onto the balcony. There, sprawled on the floor, was Viscount Vertirgo Venezia, clearly dead, his throat slit. "Who did this?" Landon cried. He looked from side to side. The balcony was shadowy, but he didn't imagine someone could hide in these shadows. Then a realization struck him and his heart sank. Landon turned to the balcony's entrance curtains. The drapes hung on either side of the doorway, but didn't hang in the middle enough to need to be pushed away. The end.
Wait, what's gonna happen?
What do you mean what's gonna happen?
What?
The Viscount's been assassinated.
And that's the end?
That's the end.
What? Okay.
You don't, what?
Nothing.
Oh, I feel like you don't like it.
They were. Let's get. I don't know.
He got assassinated by the guy.
Yeah?
I don't know. I felt like what I wanted to do was I wanted to leave a bunch of clues, and then like they lead up to something. I don't know. Maybe I should have wrote it longer, but I didn't want it to become another hour thing.
Another hour-long thing?
Just like where I'm reading for an hour. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. I get it. My story sucked. I'll do better next time.
It was just unclear at the end, like what was happening.
Yeah.
Or like I don't know.
Maybe I rushed it. Maybe other people will like it more. Hopefully the second one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What are you sorry about?
I don't know. I feel like I could have made a more enjoyable story, and I guess I didn't.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Maybe I'll go back to the characters, and then it'll be more obvious. Like, what questions do you have at the end of that?
I don't know I don't know. It ends with an assassination.
Yeah.
But then there's no fallout.
Well, maybe the fallout will be felt, elsewhere later. Like, I mean, what do you want them to do? Like, I was like, what would they do now? Like, they'd be shocked. They'd maybe stay the night, maybe leave.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know.
Like, I didn't think there was anything left to be said.
No, it's fine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just it's different.
Yeah, I tried. See, I don't know. I've written so much that it's like I want to be different, but I guess that everyone listening doesn't know that I've written so much, so I should probably not be different for a bit.
What do you mean?
It's just like I don't want to write the same story I've written a dozen times. But maybe they haven't heard it, so maybe they need to hear it to know that I can. I'm sorry, audience.
I don't know.
It's cool. If they've stayed this long, they're not gonna leave because of that.
Oh, Matt.
Okay. those were those episode 4, game.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I didn't expect you to go to gambling again.
Yeah, I thought that might have been. I don't know. It was a risk, and I guess it didn't pay off. But it was an entirely different situation because one was a seedy gambling den, and then this one was like one guy like I want to fund some of the best gamblers I've ever heard of
Yeah.
to see a game personally.
Yeah, I liked all your characters. They were cool.
I tried to make them unique, but I don't think I gave them enough time. I don't know. I botched this one. I'm gonna be beating myself up all week while I'm trying to write another story.
Jeez, man.
It's fine. It's fine. So it's my turn to prompt. The shared prompt, as it were. And I had a plan. Actually, I thought of a story, and I was like, what prompt could I use that would make this story work? And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put this one on the back burner because I've got a timely prompt. We just a little bit over a week ago we watched Sleeping Beauty, and then the next day or 2 days later I watched Maleficent. So in that spirit, I'm going to make the shared prompt be fairies.
Cool.
Shared prompt fairies.
Okay.
Now it's your unique prompt for me.
I was gonna have you do my prompt for you is gonna be a giant monster.
A giant monster.
Yeah.
That's cool. My unique prompt for you. I realized looking at my unique prompts, I don't have a whole lot here. I've got a lot more shared prompts because there's all these stories I want to write. Will be. You already did that one really well. Sorry. A blacksmith will be yours.
A blacksmith and fairies?
Fairies and a blacksmith. That's actually.
Alright.
Like I say that, and it's like, oh, that's like Maleficent. But I wasn't thinking that when I told them that, guys.
Are there blacksmiths in it?
Yeah, there's a couple of blacksmith scenes that are actually really important.
Oh, okay.
Movie.
I have not seen that one.
It's not bad.
Cool.
Okay, well, I think that clears it up for this week. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Hopefully more, actually.
Sorry.
Nah, yeah, it's my fault. It's my fault. I'll do better next time. As always, you can get a hold of us in the usual ways. We'll put those in the show notes. We're on iTunes now. Finally made it on iTunes.
Oh yeah, you can download us, subscribe to us, do whatever you do with
Review
the podcast on iTunes.
Review us on the iTunes so that other people can see us. If you enjoy our show, go on iTunes, search us, and review us because that'll get us out to the people.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, we're hard to find on iTunes. Like, you search RhapsodyCast, and then it's like, did you mean Bohemian Rhapsody, or Rhapsody in Blue, or any of these other famous songs? You gotta scroll down to the podcast section. We'll be the top of the podcast section, just we're not the top of every other section, because we're not in those.
It'll be a while.
we're gonna knock Queen off the top. We're never
we're gonna beat Queen. Especially
when we're fans. That's hard to do. It's hard to be the person you're a fan of.
Yeah.
So,
makes you,
it makes you what?
It makes you sad. It's like, oh man, I'm sorry, Freddie Mercury. I'm sorry I have to do this, but I gotta.
RhapsodyCast cannot be stopped. It's too bad we can't get him. He'd be a great guest.
Yeah.
So, we're on Facebook.com/RhapsodyCast, YouTube.com/RhapsodyCast. We got a unique name. I'm not gonna list all of the ways you can contact us. We've got a Gmail. Just get a hold of us if you need to. Ask questions. We would love to have a section where we answer questions about our worlds. Feel free to ask them. We will gladly answer them, whether on the show or personally through email, comment, or whatever. We'll make sure you get the answers you want. If you have prompts, suggest them. Like Nate and I are always sitting there going, what should we do? So feel free. Anything you need to add, Nate?
No.
Okay.
So
we hope you keep it fan-tasty.
Fan-tasty.
Fan-tasty. That was a typo I made on the Twitter. Instead of fantasy, I said fan-tasty. And I'm going to go with it. So I'm going to have a fan-tasty day, and I hope you do too.
I'm already having a fantasty day, Matt.
Oh, well, it's gonna get worse when you go to work. Oh, and once again, we want to say thank you to Black Bear Combo for providing the best music we'll ever get.
High five.
Take that, future sponsors or music mans.
No, Black Bear for life.
Life.